Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello and welcome to episode 152 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host, and back with me, much to his chagrin and my delight that he's at least here with me, is the Italian stallion himself, Darick Oswald. Charmer, I'm sorry that things have not gone your way, buddy.
Yeah, Italian stallion is not the way I would have described myself.
Right, that's why I did it.
I was in Italy, or at least I have memories of it. There are photos, so I believe it was truth, but the second half was it was a bit of a blur.
Yeah, I don't. Doa and I actually talked about this last week, where we just don't get how you have such terrible luck whenever you travel.
I have a theory.
Oh, do tell.
I never used to have any problems with travel, like hardly ever. It was pretty consistently smooth until this year. And the only thing that has changed is that the person who used to always have travel problems is no longer traveling for whatever reason. And so I think I've inherited it. So
it's like the curse and drag me to hell.
Yeah, I blame a published author for my issues and not Stephen King.
That's fair. I can definitely see that. There is the Dagan White principle, though, because Dagan has also just had shit travel luck this entire year. He had to overnight in DFW on his way to Osaka, so that happened. And then another one of my locals who was getting to Japan, he did get there, but they got in the air. And they were in the air, and somebody had a medical emergency, so they had to turn around and land back in Des Moines and entirely rebook his trip. However, he was kind enough and thought of well enough of me and our group of friends to make sure to send us a picture of his pretty small and shitty hotel room in Osaka with one very small bed in it. But even in this closet-sized room, there was a cuck chair. And I want to salute our brothers in Japan, brothers and sisters over in Japan, for sticking to the principle of the cuck chair. It is the most important part of a hotel room, bar none. And I'm glad that they honor that time in memoriam tradition that needs to be the cuck chair.
Yeah. It is interesting because it's bled over to like Airbnbs. One of the ones I stayed in Italy had one. It was actually kind of comical because
it's a cuck chair.
No, even more so. So this particular location had 2 rooms up in a loft area, which is where the boys were staying, right? And then there was like I guess you'd call it a master bedroom, but it's kind of not because you have to walk through it to get to the lofts. But there was like the larger bed was downstairs, and that had the chair next to it. So Sophie was doing stuff in the main part of the Airbnb, and I got the kids around for bed. And then because I thought I would be silly, I decided to just sit in the chair in the dark and wait for her. Right.
Yep.
Now,
that's how this works.
As I'm sitting in the chair waiting for her, I also am looking around the space. I look up, and up in like from the loft area is like a window. And I can see what looks like something in the window, but I can't tell for certain. So the chain of events is that Sophie comes to bed, and then she realizes that I'm sitting in the dark, and she like, it's, of course she does the startled like, oh, and then she was like, what are you doing, you weirdo? Like, why are you sitting in the dark? And I was like, well, you know, I wanted to do the spooky thing, but also I needed to show you this. Come here. So she walks over, and I was on a hunch. So I turned on the flashlight on my phone and I shine it up, and it's Monroe staring down through the window at us. So like I was doing the creeper in the dark and he was doing the creeper from above, and we were just chaining it through.
God.
So
that is cuckception.
Yeah, it is something.
Boy, howdy. Man, that's commitment to the bit. I am proud of the Italians at this point. My Lord. But did you do anything in Flesh and Blood? I doubt it. I mean, you've been through it, man. And
I will say I didn't do anything that was like gameplay related. When we were in Italy, Stark and I made it our mission to try to find a game store because we were going to buy either some Italian Flesh and Blood or some Italian Star Wars. We couldn't end up making it work because our best shot, we were just way too busy in Rome. There's so much to do in Rome that we never really had the free time. When we were in Florence, there's not really a game store in like the touristy part of Florence. There is a thing that's like a little bit on the outskirts of Florence, but it also basically rained the entire time we were in Florence. So we weren't going to venture that far out. And so our only shot was not in the islands of Venice, but on like the shoreline of Venice, there was a game store. But that was in the part of the trip where, Monroe got sick first and then I got sick. Well, it's actually kind of weird. So like Stark right now is still sick. He has pneumonia. Monroe, Stark got sick first and he had a deep chest cough, but it was just a cough and he didn't have any other issues and nobody else had any problems. And then Monroe was the first one to show some symptoms, and he had gastrointestinal problems that reared itself at a nice dinner, which was a fun time when you're traveling on the road in a foreign country when you don't have a bunch of extra stuff to clean up your kids. And then I got it. And then when I got it, it was, where to even begin? I caused one restaurant to shut down like the entire lower level.
You did what?
Yeah. So wasn't really feeling very well, obviously. And I'm doing the best that I can to just like trudge through it because I want my family to have a good experience. But I keep telling them like, I'm not feeling good and I need to take a break. And we were trying to, very particularly when my symptoms started to feel the absolute worst. So I started feeling them the day before after Monroe had. But it was mostly just like, I don't know, you just feel off, right? But there wasn't anything I could put it to. I was just like, you know, and I don't know, we've been going ragged on the trip or whatever. So maybe it was me running thin. You know, I didn't know for sure I was like sick. Then the next day we had checked out of our place, but we had like 3 hours to kill before our train left. And we dropped off our luggage so that we could go like explore while we were waiting. And the more that we walked, the more I kept saying like, I don't feel well. I'm going to need a bathroom soon. Like I could feel like the gurgle in my stomach. Mm-hmm. And so I'm saying this to Sophie and she's like, okay. And then it was like, okay, but we also need snacks for the train. So like I go through like an entire grocery store, like half speed, just trying to stay alive. We get outside. I'm like leaning against one of the pillars. I'm like, I'm going to need a bathroom soon. And she's like, okay, but we need like, and so there was like a couple of stops. And then we finally get to the point where I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, we need to get lunch, but more so not because we need to eat before the train, because I need to find a bathroom. Like, we've pushed this
to the brink.
So we decide that the closest place, ironically, is an American themed steakhouse. It was the Wild West Grill.
Interesting.
Okay. So we go in and she asks for a table. They say they have an opening, and then she says, okay, where are your restrooms? And I think the guy thought it was for the kids or whatever. And so he says upstairs, and I'm already thinking like, okay, great. Because now I have to go upstairs. And at this point, like, I felt like I was going to faint, like legitimately my eyes are burning. I'm having hot flashes and cold flashes, and I feel like I'm going to faint. I don't think I've been feeling that bad since like when I had swine flu. And so I'm like, going one stair at a time. We get to the top, and Sophie says, we're going to sit outside. And then she goes, but the bathrooms are that way. So they go to the right, and I turn to the left, and I make it to the bathroom doors. And then I open the door, and before I can even get like a bead on like the layout of the bathroom, I just coat it in vomit, like the full bathroom. Like it's just projectile. Now, thankfully it was actually somewhat large because there was like this big trough sink that caught most of it, but not all of it.
Most, at least.
But the problem is at that point, like, it's coming out of like my nose, my tear ducts, like everything burned. It's like dripping, but I'm hunched over, so it's like not dripping on my clothes, which is a key part of this story. It's not dripping on my clothes, but it is like dripping. And so I go to the very first stall to open it. And it's like, they don't have like urinals, obviously, because like it's Europe. But I accidentally walk into the first stall, which is like their equivalent of a urinal, which is not a full service stall. Like, it doesn't have a toilet seat. It's just meant for the fast go, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole puddle of me leading here, right? Like, if you're reconstructing the crime scene, right? Like, because I'm dripping. So I go in and like I'm doing a circle in there because I'm like trying to figure out if I can, because I still have to go like to the bathroom too. Like, this did not solve my problem. I was still having another issue.
You're all over the place.
I'm all over the place. So then I walk back out, but by the time that I've done that circle and whatever, I'm mostly not dripping. And so then I go across the bathroom to the other side and to the left, and I find that stall is open. So I go in and I try to relieve myself the rest of the way, which felt like liquid hot magma. Just not like, definitely a hate crime.
Yeah.
A 4 flusher for sure.
Oof.
But
4-ball. Damn.
But while I'm in there, I hear one person come in and then immediately leave. So obviously probably that's whoever.
Good plan.
I find out from Sophie later that person was actually sitting across from us outside.
Oh.
And she said she knew something was wrong because he came back, and even though he was speaking to his partner in Italian, he was very, Italians talk with their hands anyway, but very animated, like talking about like everything. And then he immediately flagged down staff and they went. And so then she was like, okay, something's wrong. So she tries texting me, but I didn't have my phone on me because it was with her. Like I went straight to the bathroom. So I'm in there, but I managed to like get myself cleaned up relatively well. And I finish, and I hear some other people come in. They're very not happy, obviously.
No, well, no.
And then right when I'm getting ready to exit, somebody knocks on my stall, and I go, hello, like in the most chipper voice that I can muster. And then they don't say anything. And so I step out. Now, mind you, I look clean at this point, right? There's nothing on me because it just dripped all over the floor. And I can see that they've got like chairs to block the thing off, and they've like mostly sanitized it, but they're still trying to clean. And so I just like gingerly wash my hands and leave. And so I go to find Sophie to tell her like, hey, we should, not stay super long. Mostly because obviously I'm not feeling well, but
also because he committed a hate crime.
Also because I committed a hate crime. So she's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I was like, "Well, it looks like somebody had a problem in the bathroom." And I keep saying it looks like, but then I very vividly describe everything that's happened to her, and she's just laughing, and she's like, "That wasn't you, was it?" Every time, and I'm just like, "Babe, like you have to know this was me." So then, like, we're out on the terrace, and there's a bunch of pigeons that keep trying to like come to get the boys' food, and we're trying to tell the boys like, don't do that. And then Monroe kind of casually like, "Oops, I dropped a fry." He's trying to push his boundaries, so they keep getting closer and closer. So when we finally get our bill and we go to leave, of course I'm not feeling well, so the family stands up and they immediately walk back inside to go back down the stairs, while I'm still trying to like muster the courage to stand, because like I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do it at this point. And in the time it took for them to like get up and leave me, all of the pigeons that Monroe had been taunting flocked to our table and then immediately start this just buffet, this fury of feeding on the food that was there. So at that point I like, all right, well I can't be here. Like I'm already committing like one hate crime here. Like, let's not end up in the Hague. So I get up and leave that too. But at this point, like, I think I'm starting to feel better because I feel like I've emptied everything, you know? And I'm like, all right, maybe it was just like a food poisoning thing. I feel significantly better. I got some water in me.
That's good.
I didn't eat anything. The family all ate. This is also key to the story, right? I've emptied my guts in every way possible. I don't eat anything, and I have one glass of water, okay?
One
glass, because I'm like, I'm not pushing it. Like, I obviously, like, just got rid of every fluid in my body, so I should have something. But, like, we're not going to eat. We're just going to, whatever. We get on our train to go to our next destination, and we're riding, and I'm like, all right, like, I'm starting to not feel well again, but I think it's might be like because
motion sickness.
Yeah, maybe motion sickness. The train was doing a lot more rocking at this particular time than any of the other trains had done, but also like I'm like my body's just been through a bunch. I might just like need to lay down. So Sophie gives me like the neck pillow thing, and I put it on the table in front of me, and I lay down, and I'm like trying to sleep. And then at one point, like I kind of half wake up, and Sophie says, "Are you okay?" And I'm looking at her, and I'm going like like this, but according to her, I'm just like white at this point. But I'm going and then spoiler alert, I was not okay.
Not okay.
I proceed to now like vomit all over Sophie, and it is more than what I left in the bathroom somehow. And I've been thinking about this. I don't know where it came from, because I would have thought that every part of me was emptied after the trip to the Wild West. That was not the case. So I'm coating myself. I'm coating my wife. She stuck out this tiny little bag that very quickly overflowed. She apparently had a croissant on it that I just disintegrated with the acid that was coming from within inside me.
Jesus Christ.
She's trying to get a bigger bag, but it had like shopping stuff in it. So she takes it and she just starts throwing it at the kids. She beans Monroe in the head with like this bag that she had bought, this nice leather bag that she bought in Italy, obviously. So she beans him in the head, just trying to get stuff out so that I have a bag to puke in. But the damage is already done, right?
Yeah,
like,
you're past that point.
Let me tell you, when I planned this trip for my family, my boys' big like first real international trip, I did not in my itinerary write down any notes about seeing my own vomit slide from back and forth on the floor of a train car as it banked, because like it was dripping. Like the car like kind of vacated. People didn't want to be near me, as you would imagine. The people on the train, however, I don't know if they're just like used to people doing it. I assume it's a bunch of tourists show up and get drunk. I also had not been drinking, mind you, but I don't know if it's because of like the wine stuff or whatever. They could care less. They did not seem bothered at all. Okay. It was like a Tuesday to them. but it was just, again, like straight up not a good time. And then like on the train is when the fever eventually kicked in. We ended up taking the train all the way to back to a hotel near the airport so that I could just sweat it out there until it was as much out of my system as it could be for us to come back home. So it, like, was essentially the end of our trip, because we didn't want to risk like me spraying it anymore. But it was just wild how much was coming out of me. Like, I still cannot fathom where it came from, because I had one glass of water and I would have bet hard money that there was nothing left in me after the Wild West. So yeah, never made it to the game store.
Long story short.
Never got to find our Italian cards of flesh and blood. First half of the trip was great. Rome is really pretty.
Yeah. I mean, obviously.
So yeah, Stark has pneumonia. Monroe's mostly bounced back. I still have a lot of chest and sinus congestion.
Can hear that. Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm going to kick it or not. So, I mean, I know, but for the people who didn't see me post or whatever, I canceled my trip to Osaka for two reasons. One, when I came back, I had to take additional days off of work because I couldn't go into work. Those days ate into what would have been my time off for the trip to Osaka. So like, I don't have enough paid time off built up because I just got back from Italy, and then the additional sick days. I theoretically could just take it unpaid. They call it lost time. But the problem is that is usually something that can also trigger it's like a negative thing in HR. And
sure.
Even going a step further, I don't personally care, but there's a lot of very high people that have either just retired or are in the process of retiring. And so there's a lot of like walking on eggshells around the office right now, because nobody knows how things are going to shake out. And specifically the person that I report to, she's a really good division administrator, and I don't want to cause her any more headaches. So between the work conflicts, as well as I still don't even know if I'll be well enough to travel by then. I canceled it because I was coming up, like I was hitting the point where if I didn't cancel by a certain time, then it was going to start being like X percentage more of my booking stuff that I couldn't get back and whatever. So I had to make the call. And I don't want to risk it. After doing the worst part is I felt so guilty doing it like in Italy, but I have no control over it. I don't like to travel if I'm not feeling well, because it's just not fair to the people around me.
Right.
And the last thing that I want to do, especially if we're talking about like the flesh and blood community and whatever, I don't want to be selfish and then travel and get a bunch of other people sick, and ruin their time. So even if there's a chance, and if it was just like a cold or something, it'd be one thing, but what I endured in Italy is not something that I wish on a lot of people. Maybe a couple, but not a lot of people. There's a
list, but it's not a long one.
And it's definitely not the flesh and blood community. And so there's just no way that I could do that. It sucks. And believe me, like I really wanted to go on this trip, and I was really looking forward to it. And it has been, a very large mental drag on me and an emotional drag on me the past couple of days since I canceled it, but I just can't do that to the other people just because I want to be selfish. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, that's fucking wild, and I'm sorry that it went like that for you, obviously. But in my own selfish way, that lets me know that you have the paid time off now to come with me to Portland.
Well, no, because I just spent it all in sick days. I mean, I would love.
By then you'll be good.
I would love to go. I was trying to sell Sophie on potentially doing it anyway. So if anything, like what I would say is message her. Like you can
I'll
be
message Sophie.
You can be my second wingman, because that's like her favorite place in the United States. So
So we're gonna do something rare right now. For what we do and what I did in Flesh and Blood, we're gonna have a listener question. Very early in the show. This one's from Sephiroth. He begins with, "Congrats on the win, Logan, and also being the only ProQuest winner from Iowa, I believe. But what the fuck was that ProQuest?" Now, I did win a ProQuest. That has happened. I am now qualified for London. It's the first time I've won a ProQuest after many second place finishes. But that happened. Like, so I finally did it. And that feels great. Okay. But now let's get to the listener question. He's going to start listing out things on here, and I'm going to go ahead and get in front of this and say, literally nothing that I'm going to say is untrue. The list starts with, there were 2 tables. We had to draft standing up. There weren't enough tables for the 10 people that showed up. They charged $60 with no additional pricing. They wanted to do only 1 draft and not redraft the top 8, which is part of the actual rules of running the event.
Wait, before you go further, so they wanted to charge $60 with no additional price support and get you out of the second draft, like for product?
Yeah, they didn't want us to draft. They didn't want to draft top 8.
Wow.
They just were like, yep, nope, we're just going to cut to top 8, keep playing your same decks. And every single one of us that wasn't a local just went, no, that's not how this works. To the point that I'm messaging Josh Scott because I can't find the spot in this website that it says what to do. But then you had Bryce and Matthew Greenleaf from Nebraska that were also just like on the same spot, and Bryce found it before Josh got back to me. And we're like, no, you have to do this. So that got fixed, but they wanted to just do a cut to top 8 with your same draft deck. Again, $60, no additional pricing. They gave 3 packs to 9th and 10th place, but no one else got anything outside of the promos that were shipped with the kit, which is free, by the way. And then they fuck up top 4 pairings and make you have to win twice. I'm coming back to that in a second. And how do you get a PQ when you only have 2 locals? Now, the only 2 locals show up. That doesn't mean that's all they have, but there were only 2 locals that showed up. Now I'm going to rewind a couple of things here. So it was a very small shop. They did not cap the event. They got lucky. Because if even 4 more people had shown up, if it was 14 players, that would have been completely untenable. Like it would have been unplayable. This is the first time that shop has ever run anything other than an armory, from what they told me, which is wild that they are a new store to Flesh and Blood that hasn't run anything above effectively an armory, and they're getting a draft ProQuest. That's nuts. They had a big problem figuring out how, because they were just going to let people stand wherever they wanted to draft, rather than, take whatever spot you want, rather than actually see a draft table. And I'm like, no, you have to do this by this. And then they had the seatings wrong. The seatings for the top 8 draft pod, they had the seatings wrong where people were supposed to sit. So we got that fixed by using the pairings. And then I win my quarterfinals quickly. So the event itself, in the first draft, I'm the only Acilio at the table. And with 10 people drafting, a 10-player pod, only Acilio. And I lose round 1 because I wasn't greedy enough, because I didn't really understand what I was doing. Then understood the greed from there on out and won the next 2. Great. Go into top 8 draft as the 5th seed. Then I was the only Aurora drafter at the table.
Ooh.
Yeah. And while I had 3 Acilios to my right, so they were soaking up a lot of the lightning cards, I was getting every good Red Runeblade card ever. And so then it hits pick 4, pack 2, and I get past a burn up shock. And I'm like, we're in the right spot. Okay, now we feel good. And then pack 3, I opened another burn up shock. And I'm like, okay, we're in a real good spot now. And that's how you win a ProQuest. But So what happens is the judge goes, quarterfinals get over. The judge goes, okay, Logan, you play Bryce. Micaiah, you play Matthew. Okay, sit down, play. I win quickly. Again, only Aurora. Win very fast. Go to input my results, and I am paired against the wrong person. So immediately, alarm bells. What the fuck? And I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to be playing Micaiah, not Bryce, and I just won. What are we going to do about this? And the judge goes, I told you you were playing Micaiah. I'm like, and everybody stops with their hands and says, no, the pairings you said were this, and we took you at your word. And he's like, that's not what I said. And then I look at a piece of paper that he had. I'm like, you wrote it down as Bryce playing Logan and Micaiah playing Matthew.
That's not what I wrote.
Yeah. And he's just like, I must have seen something wrong. And I'm like, why am I supposed to care? So then I had to go and win again against my correct opponent. So I might be the only person to win a 10 person ProQuest that had to win 4 times in a top 8. But here we are. And then when the event gets over, it's just promo. Here are your promos. Here's your playmat. So for $60 a head, so $600, they went through 60 packs of product. That's $10 a pack.
Yeah.
So, and I get it. This is their first time running something like this. They might not understand the expectation. They made it on the website that, I can charge $60. And so they charge $60. Okay. I can forgive that one. At least have a discussion about forgiving that one. The no real room. Okay. That's obviously problematic, but the store size is something they can't change. They'd have to move the event, which probably was not doable. Okay. That the size of your store, while it is your fault, is not something that is easily dealt with, depending, in the circumstance. Okay, that's fine. Not understanding that you had to draft again and you wanted a bigger rake on your $60 entries to just draft one total time. All right, we're starting to drift into the red. We're drifting way into the red now.
Yeah, that's
not having staff that understands how to run a draft. We're fading you faster. Then making it so that the pairings are wrong. And I don't know who was ahead in the other matchup or how the other matchup was going. I did talk to my car mates and they're like, ew. It was pretty deep in, and they were high life total still. So really nobody had a distinct advantage, but it's Verd and Cecilio. So at any point in time, one person can just nuke the other one. And so it's like, yep, okay. So I have no idea how far that one was in. And it's like, at the very, very best, this store is gray listed for me forever going back to. And it's a dark charcoal gray, like very close to just black.
Counterpoint. Listed. That's the only way that you've won so far.
Okay. Counterpoint is accepted and heard. And I definitely had to go through. It's funny. There was 2 of their locals and the rest were like traveling ringers from Iowa and Nebraska. So
I'm just saying, like, there's some stores that I don't get a chance to go to often, but like I've always had good luck there. So not Flesh and Blood related, but for Star Wars, the first season store showdowns, I was out of town, so I stopped in at this little store. It was in Chicago. It was by Min Max Games. Yeah, there. So I stopped in and I won their event, and it was fun. So I think like I would go back there again if I was ever in town just to win their events.
Just to win their events. Yeah. Just taunt Peter a little bit more. But I want to preface all this by saying, in Des Moines, where we are located, we are the most spoiled. Like, full stop. We have 2 great game stores that get the ProQuest level events, and we have no less than 4 great game stores for going and playing events at. And I think it's probably closer to 6. But my LGS that's closest to me, I can tell you right away, like their rake for entries on events is 15%. Everything else is given away, is priced, is in the pool. And our other LGS that's north of me, about the same, not far off. And they also are, game spaces that can hold 100 plus. Like I believe that the one north of me can handle, I think we can fit probably 120 in there. We have fit over 200 in my LGS. So that's a battle hardened, for fuck's sake. And we are definitely spoiled. And I get that. But there's a difference between stores that go above and beyond and stores that do the bare minimum. I don't expect the above and beyond for every store. Just be competent. That's all I really want. And I'm not going to name the store. I'm not going to put them on blast because, again, they're new. And I want this, if anybody around that area listens and knows what I'm talking about, I want this to be a learning experience more than anything else. And I'm not ready to just burn it down, but I was the winner of the event and it wasn't a good experience. Now think of the people who didn't win, because it can't be much better for them. But yeah, I'm qualified for London now. Hooray!
Yeah,
I'm gonna go to London. You should not fuck around and actually find a way to do that. But
I mean, there's like no way I'll get qualified.
That's fair. Now I do have a question, and I am using you as the sole arbiter of this hypothesis. No one else's opinion on this matters.
Okay.
Only yours.
Okay.
So whatever you say is the law of the land for this, and I expect you to be as open-minded with impartial judgment as possible.
That's a tall task.
You know my rule is I would not buy a gold foil until I'd earned one.
Mm-hmm.
Before the finals, me and my opponent made a gentleman's agreement that second place will get the gold foil, because we both wanted the invite. It's the only thing we cared about. And so it's a nice little salve on your wounds to have a gold foil in your pocket, even if you miss on the invite, right? When I collected prizes, I collected the gold foil as the first place prize and then handed it to my opponent, because I'm not a piece of shit. Well, I'm not that big a piece of shit. Now, did I win a gold foil, and am I allowed to purchase them now?
Yes.
Okay. So that Band-Aid is now ripped off and I can buy gold foils.
However, I have a question. Did the person open it?
Yes.
What was it?
Crater Fist. I don't feel good about that.
Yeah.
That hurt. Because that's a real good one.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that because again, it's somebody that I respect and know. One of the Nebraska players is actually leaving the Midwest here shortly, and I'm a class act good player, has qualified for the Pro Tour many times. He's going out to New Jersey. I'm sure he'll find a great community there, but and I'll miss the guy. He was always fun. He kind of quiet, kind of a Dagan-ish type, I guess, and but just overall a good dude. And so I was happy that he opened something worthwhile at the very least, Yeah. But at the same time, when he opened it, I was like, oh, that could have been mine. Yeah. Because then I would have just given it to you. But yeah, that was my ProQuest experience this past weekend. I only played in 2 total. They were, because I was going to play one today. It's Sunday. We're recording on Sunday. And I'd already paid and registered. But after winning yesterday, and I woke up at 6:45 this morning to my alarm so I could get ready to go and play in the other one, because I'd already paid for it. But it's a 4-hour drive. It's an 8-hour round trip, basically, to the other one. And I'm just like, nah, I'm just going to stay home and watch football and make sure I can actually record this show on time. Yeah, that seems like a good $35 lost at that point. So that's fine. Whatever. So I only played in 2 total. Both were draft. I 2-4'd the first one. Then I lost round 1 of the second one and then didn't lose after that. And wound up going 6-1 because I had to play 7 times. You ready for some news and notes? Are we ready to move on here, you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say it's good to have you. It is good to have you back, buddy. While I had 2 epically good co-hosts in your absence, they still aren't my little charm baby. So it is good to have you back, even though I wish the circumstances were a little bit better for your health and your enjoyment. But
yeah, me too.
Yeah, but yeah, both DM Armada and Doa filled in very nicely for you while you were gone, and again, just another big thanks to them. But we get to go back and talk about some stuff here in a minute that I think will actually make you happy to talk about. But first, let's talk about ProQuest Season 3 or Week 3. So that was the week before this. This was the first week of results with Dash.io legal with the Armory deck. So Aurora was still the top, or got to the top of the standings this time with 20 wins on the week, which is still pretty fucking good. And then Enigma was second with 17, followed by Florian, Viscerai. It's a real good time to be a Runeblade, by the way. New Dash.io and Azalea both had 11 wins. So what do we make of 3 Runeblades, an assassin, and a illusionist from the same set in our top 5 for results?
Ooh. It's not surprising. I just think that I think the lull was short-lived. I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and there was this talk about kind of trying to power down Fab for Fab 2.0, right? Like that got a lot of discourse and press for a bit, and then we had sets like Outsiders and Heavy Hitters, which were, Outsiders had some powerful stuff in it, but it wasn't talented like levels of power. Heavy Hitters was a bit more of the same, and so when we were kind of living in that period, Bright Lights came and it introduced some, in my opinion anyway, mechanically cool things, but nothing made a splash. When we were kind of going through that period, the powering down was real. But now we are in the world of talents once again. And whether it's Mystic or some of the old elemental ones, I think we are remembering how powerful some of those things are, just because I've been trying to think about what makes the talented stuff so powerful, right? Why is it always the talented stuff that seems to push things over the edge? Because part of it is is it just that those are more fun to play, right? Are they more appealing? Is it a card pool thing? Is it a more options thing? And it is to some degree, but I also feel like there's more inherent synergistic bonuses that are hard to quantify, right? So what I mean by that is that whenever you have these talented heroes, right, whether they're a lightning talent, a mystic talent, whatever, some of those cards that would be relatively benign by themselves become better as parts of a whole. So I will take a card Fry, for example, which is just a 3 damage go again.
Bag of fries.
Right? It's just a 3 damage go again. And we've seen a bunch of those in the past. Other classes have them, right? Like Assassin has Hurl. Hurl isn't exactly breaking anything.
Doesn't that cost one though?
No, it costs one if you do the activation.
Okay.
It's just a 0 for 3 go again. It goes in and out of my lists depending on meta, because sometimes it's a good way to try to go wide and help clear.
Well, that's what you do in Italian restaurants.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's called a callback.
But the point though is that by itself though, that is just exactly that though. It's that 0 for 3 go again. And the thing that makes the talented one so important is that it has that lightning tag on it, and that turns on everything else about the class. Earl doesn't really turn on the rest of the assassin suite, right?
Sure, yeah.
But for the lightning heroes, that card is a significantly better opener than Hurl. And even with Hurl being able to block for 2, like that part's irrelevant. Yeah, Hurl can throw a dagger, but that's a one like in 10 games niche thing that you would do at the end of the game. Whereas Fry is, you're going to get that value of it being the lightning card that you need every time you play it.
I mean, well, like I think with Fry specifically, it's one of the best ways to look at Fry is with a blue. Effectively, it's a 2-card 5, which isn't great, but it's a 2-card 5 with 2 action points. Like, because you have go again, and then the ability to make an embodiment behind it with the 2 floating.
Well, first of all, I'm offended that you're saying the words blue, because I don't play blues, but
yeah, we know you're a psychopath. I get it.
But no, but like it's partially that, but it's even like I've been trying to think about it, because it's even more than that, because it's not just like the Fry scenario, right? It's again, you can take a card like a Nimblism, which has been around forever. It's been in and out of some lists. You understand what it does, and then you look at the lightning equivalents, and suddenly you're like, okay, but it's significantly more important to have that lightning keyword, right? And so even if you never do fuse shenanigans with Weave Lightning, or even if you never care that like it's sizzle or whatever, it's still going to do for you what you needed it to do. And some of them are scaling, right? Yeah, we haven't seen Ocilio make a huge splash yet, but I mean, you can mark my words that when it happens, it will be because of the lightning talent, right? All of those cards will be an extra value for his weapon that you're just kind of getting inherently. And so I think that's why, one, this is my long-winded way of saying, like, I think that's why we're seeing so many of these, newer heroes do well, because they're talented, but also it's because whenever we have a plethora of both talented heroes and cards for them to utilize, they tend to do better than your generics. Doesn't mean your generics can't win. It doesn't mean they don't have game into them or whatever. They just tend to do better because they're inherently doing more for you. And then when you take that and you exacerbate it by adding into the piece of the puzzle that Flesh and Blood is a game of inches, not miles, and that the best players in the game can consistently get that value, right? Like there's a reason it's the same people that are always doing well in the game. If they can find, hey, these talented heroes are giving me inches worth of additional value, like, of course that's what I'm going to play, and of course that's what I'm going to do well with, right? So you end up kind of all arriving at, similar points, which is the talented heroes are probably the way to go.
I'd like to point out that number 4 on this list is a non-talented hero. It's just Viserai, because turns out that some of these Runeblade cards they printed in Rosetta are just pushed for a thing like Viserai to happen, and it's fun as hell watching a Viserai go off.
Well, I think Viserai is the best answer for what you were saying before I started talking about how like the talent feeds into itself. You were talking about card pool as one of the inherent things. Is there a class that has more direct support than Runeblade? Like
Warrior.
It used to be the joke that it was, Flesh and Runeblade, right? Because
Warrior has the largest card pool.
Wow, I'm surprised by that.
Yep, it's just they're Warrior. They don't.
I mean, I hear you, but like they weren't a focal point of as many sets,
right? But they have a so heavy hitters, warrior cards.
Right. Welcome to Wraith, and then your
Welcome to Wraith,
supplementals.
warrior cards. Monarch, warrior cards. Supplemental sets, warrior cards. Including Dust Till Dawn, warrior cards. It's big.
Right. But so like I was just thinking, so all of the Monarch, Dust Till Dawn, so every time you say warrior, you can also say Runeblade because same sets.
Yep, but just not heavy hitters, not WTR.
Right. So instead it's Arcane Rising, Tales of Aria, and Rosetta.
Yeah, now Rosetta. It might actually be Runeblade now.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like,
yeah,
because you were saying like, hey, some of those new Runeblade cards that they printed, but it's like, yeah, they got more usable ones. Their card pool got bigger.
We'll just take Viserai's card pool and compare it to.
Well, that's not fair because Viserai has a Fable he can play too.
That's true. I don't really care. And then that's not legal in Classic Constructed, so we don't count those. So minus what? 1, 2, 3 out of this, and then this is 6 by 3, so 18 minus 3 is 15 times 7 pages is 105 of just Runeblade. If you do the same with just Warrior, not Talented, mind you. You do the same thing with Warrior, the same number of subtractions, you have 8 pages of stuff. So Warrior is still bigger.
Yeah, that actually surprises me.
But either way, like, I get it. And Warrior's problem is that Warrior has really only ever had the one axis that it works off of. And that's why Warrior's Warrior, right? You attack. You don't have the disruption of a Guardian. You don't have the split damage of a Runeblade. You don't have the tricks of an illusionist. You don't have the crazy synergies of an assassin or a mechanologist. You're just a warrior.
Right. And
that's all. And warrior on hits are usually pretty mild, whereas the ranger on hits are usually backbreaking. So, but has a good weapon, has a great armor suite, and that's what warrior's supposed to be. And I think that that's fine. It's just, obviously support needs to start coming in different ways, but yeah, I mean, card pool is a big deal. Like, we'll get to Arnold Schwarzenegger here in a minute, but like, that's a hell of a card pool that he's going to start out with. And people are already building Jarl Vitradis decks and playing on Talishar that are viably good. And we don't know all the fucking cards in that deck.
Yeah.
So we have a lot, and including the weapon. So we have a lot to learn about that. And it's already looking like it's a viable deck to start, which I think everybody expected, really. Quick LL check. Dash IE is at 935 and will in all likelihood be legal in Osaka. So Dash mains can rejoice at being able to play, OG Dash for at least another tournament. Enigma and Aurora are your two biggest gainers on the Rosetta ProQuest London season. With Enigma's got 395 points out of the season, so eating real good, and Aurora has 310. So we have two talented heroes there. So you have a Mystic Illusionist and a Lightning Runeblade being your bigger gainers. That does play into the whole, and we know that talents are stronger. We've known that forever. So that's that part. The talented part's not surprising. I am interested. There's no other hero that's above 200 as of the end of week 3. There will be a couple probably after week 4. But I'm interested in how that there isn't a ton of Zen that you're seeing, because Zen is still good. And it makes me believe and I didn't put this in the show notes, and I probably should have. We're going to do it anyway. That Zen is going to be. I think Zen is one of the decks I would favor to win Worlds. Let's just jump into that real quick. First, we'll talk about Dash.io. Dash.io 111 ProQuest in the first week out. And we're going to fit this into the Worlds discussion because, the question I asked in here is it the actual best deck or is it all hype? And let's fit that into the Worlds discussion right now. So first off, I already put this on Blue Sky, so it's out there in the world. My pick to win Worlds is putting Tam on Zen. I think that Zen is an incredibly powerful deck that people are sleeping on because it just doesn't have those burst turns anymore. But you may have made the deck accidentally better against the wider array of matchups by banning Art of War and Bonds. Now, does that mean the deck is going to necessarily do everything better? No. It does mean that it's not as flimsy to things like new. And I feel like the deck is well positioned against most things you're going to see. The only thing it really folds to still in a very bad way is Disruptive Guardians, because you need cards still. But Zen States fuck up Rune Blades. Oh my god, is it funny?
Yeah.
And when you time walk somebody for 2 turns in a row and only pay for it once, but what are your thoughts? What if you had to make? You have to. I'm putting you on the spot. What are your Worlds predictions for hero and player?
It's gonna be Josh Lau and Dorinthia.
Damn. You're going into my playbook.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like, what's your rationale?
This is the first time in a long time that I don't think that the meta has any deck that is like head and shoulders above the rest. There are good decks, but I don't think there's any like standout great decks at the moment. And so, to me, it then just comes down to specialists that are really good into the field. And so, Josh Lau, he knows Warrior better than anybody. I could see
knows
him
any class, like I would say.
I could easily see him navigating through a field of uncertainty, or Rune Blades this, Wizards that, whatever, and still doing fine. My second gut reaction was actually Peter on Kano, and the only reason that I was gonna go with Josh over Kano is because Dorinthia just doesn't really have any polarized matchups.
No,
like that's the thing that jumps out to me. She's not like favored really in anything, but she's also just like got game, and I think that Josh could be the kind of person who could just like go on a heater like that. Very reminiscent to me of like almost like what Pablo did, right? Yep. When he ran it back as well. Pablo's another person I could see doing incredibly well.
Pablo is, I agree with James White on that. I think Pablo's the best player in the world. I just think he is.
Yeah, I used to think so, but I saw this really cool video where he lost to this Jacob guy. So
he didn't lose to him. He won. He won with a pummel. He didn't lose to Jacob. Come on now, it's Pablo Pintor. And that was a very cool video. You're correct. Shout out to our 3 floating guys. They're still the best. We love them to death. And I totally understand. So now we're gonna go to Dark Horse, right? What's your I wouldn't be surprised if
Mara wins it on Dash.io?
Mara did not go to Osaka.
That you know of so far, there is still time, and there would not be a single more Mara thing than to show up,
flight to Osaka on like
last
Wednesday.
Minute, pulling the I didn't even plan on playing in this event.
Oh, Jesus Christ, not again. Um, that's an interesting. Well, she'd have to have redeemed her PTI already for Worlds too, so she can't actually go. But mine is a relatively unknown, to the world player from either Poland or like Japan, one of those like countries that we know they're good. We just don't always give them all the credit they deserve. And the dark horse pick would be Ocilio. I think that there is an Ocilio deck out there somewhere that somebody has got tuned that is just a bomb that just explodes. And if people aren't prepared for that kind of, to weather that turn, it's going to surprise people. Now, draft is a different thing. I've got a draft question or two for you too, but it would not surprise me if there was an Ocilio lurking, either threatening the top 8 or getting in there and causing havoc. That would not shock me. Teams do play it relatively close to the chest when this time comes around. So you kind of look at the decks, you look at the heroes that haven't been putting up results. Like Ocilio had 0 wins last week. Ocilio had 2. Zen had 4. Prism had 5. Like when you're starting to look at what are the things that can surprise me? Bolton is another one. Bolton can just go aggro and win games. Yeah, I saw it in Milwaukee. They can just do that. They can win through a lot of things. And that's another one to like kind of pay attention to, like maybe even a Josh Lau type on Bolton instead of on Dorinthia would handle the business. And it's kind of, I'd also not be surprised by that. So draft question for you. I know that have you even got a chance to draft Rosetta yet?
Draft it? No.
Fuck man, you're missing out. Holy shit, you're missing out. It is a good
the only draft ProQuest that was happening in my area was when I was gone in Italy, so
you could have been playing a ProQuest rather than shitting yourself in an Italian restaurant. Okay. Well, I guess in a Wild West restaurant in Italy.
Yeah.
Just gotta make sure I clear that out. America. So you know what the cards do. You're sitting in a pod and you open your pack, and in the pack is a foil arc lightning. So like it's relevant, and also a germinate. You have 2 decomposed cards in the pack, and 1 red lightning card in the pack, and 1 sigil of lightning in the pack. What do you take?
2 decomposes, 1 red lightning, a foil arc lightning, and what was the other one?
A germinate.
A germinate. Ooh. That's tough because, like, and you're not in any of these yet, right?
Pack 1.
Just pack 1. I feel like if it's me, I feel like I would lean towards the germinate just because that's more likely that the decompose stuff is going to wheel than the lightning stuff.
Yeah, you can tell you haven't drafted this. Decomposed cards get picked alpha fast. And so I think the answer is you take the arc lightning. And the reason I think you take the arc lightning is you're going to pass the germinate left. So it's a clear signal that Florian is open. You're not in Florian. And if they take the germinate and then pass 2 decompose left, it's probably putting the person next to them and maybe the person next to them in Earth solid. Meaning that your payoff in pack 2 is 3 deep coming back right. That would be my logic.
Yeah, maybe. I was just thinking, like, if you take the Germinate, though, it's something similar, right? Where, like, you take the Germinate and you send it and they see the Arc Lightning, then they're also pretty safe to
But you're going to go Earth, Lightning back to Earth at you, Impact 2.
Yeah, but
I'd rather try to string 3 Earth together on my left.
Yeah, maybe.
But I think I would take the Arc Lightning. I also think that Lightning heroes get underdrafted.
So this is actually, I think, just a really interesting psychological exercise anyway, because I'm not saying that you're wrong. Historically, when I've tried to do things like that, though, the problem is that people don't take the signals, and then I just get fucked because, like, everything that you're doing is assuming that people are following the same draft algorithm that you are. And to me, I've gotten myself in more trouble when I do those things than when I just try to play like raw numbers. And individually, and so like this is the other reason why I was leaning more towards the Germinate. I think when you just look at from an individual power level, the Germinate is
that's the strongest card in the pack.
It's the strongest card in the pack, right? It's a blue, it's a block 3, it's relevant if you do decide to play it. Like, it does all the things you want. It's an earth card. So like, yeah, I might not end up in the best draft position, but I've hedged that bet by just taking the best card. And then if my opponents, like, sometimes I have to play for my opponents to make mistakes too. And
true, you do.
I find that in draft, this is also what's always interesting, because even when I do draft a lot of times, like, your draft pools or pods, especially if you either play with the same people or you play at locals or whatever, they can kind of become incestuous, where you all get a rhythm for what everyone else does. And then the moment that you go somewhere else, and people don't like follow the same rhythm, it can again cause you a headache. So
no, true.
I'm not saying that one is more correct over the other. I've been burned more often by like trying to see, because the problem is that sometimes people will take the signals differently. And then there are also some people who overvalue some cards over others. And then there's also some people that just force no matter what. So yeah, I don't know. I think I would still go with the Germinate. I don't think you can go wrong really with the Arc Lightning there. I think it's Germinate or Arc Lightning, but
I mean, Arc Lightning is 2 points of arcane damage regardless. Like, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. I just was curious. And so let's move on. I wanted to come back to this. I discussed this with Steven already. Sorry, DM Armada for the uninitiated, I guess, on the show a couple weeks ago. But let's go to JARLS Jr. and talk about Jarl Vitrades, the new Guardian. So we all know you're a Guardian stan, as well as an Assassin stan. Those
are my two babies.
And this motherfucker is an Earth Ice Guardian. And the text is, whenever you play an ice card, create a frostbite token in an opponent's exposed head, chest, arms, or leg zone. Now, Darick.
I still love that flavor. Like, I absolutely gush over how cool it is from a design standpoint to make it that, like, you get the frostbite by not covering yourself up. That's
true. It's a flavor win.
It's such a huge flavor win.
So let's have some fun here. Just on the text box alone, what are your thoughts?
I mean, he's fun. Like, I don't know what else you want. I'm actually, if anything, like, I'm actually very surprised that he is Earth and Ice, because he could very well just have been Ice.
I have a theory behind that. We'll get to it.
With this design, and still probably been fine.
Yep, I have a theory behind that. We'll get to it. Okay, So let's dig into we know 3 cards that are new, and then Mangle is in the deck, which will be out November 29th. So luckily the week after Portland, so I won't have to deal with the son of a bitch in Portland. So we know 3 cards, 2 Jarl specializations, another ice card, and theoretically 4 because we have Mangle. Without the flavor text, which what the fuck?
Right.
But the first one is Crumble to Eternity. It's a blue block 3, 0 cost, Ice Earth action aura. Keep that in your head. When this enters, put a -1 defense counter on an equipment. Beginning of action phase, destroy this, and your next attack gets Dominate. Okay. Take it away, homeboy.
I mean, this card is kind of a requirement for the Mangle synergy that the hero's designed around.
But why do we have to have another single card fuse for Oakenold?
Well, again, this is in part why I was surprised that he was Ice and Earth and not just Ice. I mean, yeah, you have one other single card fuse for Oakenold, and it's even worse than that because it's not even a legendary one, right? So like,
yeah, you can play 3 of these.
You can play these plus the pulse,
so 4 total.
But I if I'm being honest, I think that part of the reason that they are allowing you to do that with Jarl is because I think that some of the stuff that you forget when you're not somebody who plays a lot of Guardian is how important Bravos hero text is, especially for your crush effects. And being that this is a hero that wants to also like play Mangle at a minimum because it does cool stuff for you. Like, let's be honest, it's also going to be playing the name is escaping me now.
Spinal Crush?
Well, I mean, yeah, you're going to be playing Spinal Crush, but sorry. The card that's like Tear Asunder. But there's another one that also lets you destroy equipment.
Buckle.
Yep. Sorry. So you're going to be playing Buckle because the whole point is you need the exposed zones so that you can then play ice cards to give people frostbites and etc. So with that play pattern in mind, there's 2 like kind of missing pieces of the puzzle, if you will, and Crumble of Eternity checks a lot of those boxes. The first is, how do you give your stuff Dominate or Overpower or whatever, right? Like you need some sort of evasion because otherwise people are just going to block out your Mangles. They're just going to block out your Spinals. We kind of already see that problem sometimes with Victor. Bravo's hero text is like really important for making sure those crush effects hit. And it also, it's interesting. I'm very curious to see what his equipment suite is going to look like with this armory deck, because again, with Bravo's hero power, usually your play pattern is obviously the 2 blues into a 4 attack something. So in Bravo, it's been Chokeslam for a long time because you haven't had a reason to play Mangle. But it's kind of the same thing, right? Like if Jarl was Bravo, then it would be 2 blues. You'd dominate your Mangle, you'd play the Mangle, and that's your 6 resources. There is, I guess, theoretically a chance that Jarl still ends up playing Tunic and you're just trying to do 1 blue plus Tunic into your Mangles, but I just don't think that's going to be what they want for him. So I suspect that the equipment we get will give you some sort of feeder for the other stuff. It'll either cost 1 or 2, could cost 1 and then invite you to play Tectonic Plating again. We'll see. But Crumble to Eternity, Earth, Ice Fuse, that part's important. The big thing that it doesn't check for me, though, is it doesn't have Go again, and that might not seem like a huge deal. And with this card, it's probably not, because you're probably just blocking out, doing this as your setup, and then trying to Mangle the following turn when this pops and you get your Dominate, you kill whatever you put the token on, etc.
Right.
But the other piece of the puzzle, though, is going to be ice cards that have Go again, because once you do your Mangle or your Buckle shenanigans, you need to have a way to give them like the frostbite tokens, right? And so you still also want to attack. You don't want to just give people frostbite tokens and block out forever. That's not a game-winning strategy. So you're gonna be looking for the ice cards that have go again. And I know we're going to talk about one coming, and that's part of the reason that I'm mentioning that. But some of the older, existing previous ones are, I think, coming at a premium now as well. So I think immediately of cards like Hypothermia. Obviously, Channel Lake Frigid is and always has been bonkers. But I would keep an eye out for your ice cards that have go again to potentially be relevant. Specifically, Weave Ice, I think is going to have a really strong place in Jarl because, again, you don't have a lot of great ways to do the dominate part.
Yeah, maybe even like, well, I think Exposed to the Elements is definitely high up on the list for this type of deck.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, obviously you mentioned the big hitters of Hypothermia, Channel Lake Frigid. Blizzard is going to be a nightmare for people because blizzarding and giving a frostbite is very Icelander bullshit. And you're going to be able to do that with Jarl to make it so that I'm going to effectively stop your turn with this blizzard one way or the other. And that always feels kind of nice, for that play style. Let's just move to the next card. And I do want to, this one's Unforgetting, Unforgiving. Again, another Jarl specialization. It's a Guardian block card that blocks 4. Big fucking deal right there. And when this defends, if the attacking hero controls an equipment with a -1 defense counter on it, you may search your deck for a Mangle, banish it, then shuffle. You may play it during your next action phase. Now, 2 things I want to get into here. 1, Carlos Cruchaga. You are a fucking master, and it is epic that Unforgetting, Unforgiving is, whatever this town is with the Jarl statue in front and looking kind of awesome, and then Crumble to Eternity is the same fucking town covered in ice. You are an absolute legend, sir, and all my praise and applause to you for 2 epic pieces of art that I just absolutely adore how they work together. Now, next thing. This is pretty much always going to go get a Mangle.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the setup you were talking about, I think. Because it's a perfect setup card. So let's say you have in your hand an Unforgetting, Unforgiving, and a Crumble to Eternity. You can slam the Crumble, draw up, knowing you can block with this and get the Mangle, and the Mangle is going to have Dominate.
Right.
Like, that's A+. And that's going to most likely get your Crush effect, because Mangle's a thick boy. It's an 8-ball. And so Sink Below, not enough.
Unless it comes from Arsenal. But...
yeah, that's true. But come on, there'll be no peace for warmongers like you is such a great line. Why is the flavor text not on the one in the armory deck?
It's not? Oh,
no,
that's disappointing.
It's not. At least on the mock-up they show on the website. But I think that this is a perfect card in basically every way that it's designed. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a scary card because it potentially, so we've talked quite a bit about not trying to extend your hand, and historically Guardians haven't been able to do that anyway, and this is like one of the first cards of its kind in the class that does allow you to do that, because you're essentially getting 4 block and attacking with the same card.
Yeah. Yep. It's basically block 4, draw a card.
Right. And that card is
powerful.
Always
Mangle.
Yeah, like a really good one. Like one that you want.
Right, it's always Mangle.
Yeah, and that's why, like I said, I'm so curious to see how the equipment stuff's going to shake out, because even when you don't have the Crumble to Eternity setups, right? When you're in those nitty-gritty game states at the end of the game, being able to block for 4 and use some of the other cards in your hand, and then still like just keep the 1 blue, and then whether it's Tunic or whether it's, you know, off of a Surge from your Tectonic Plating, whatever the case may be, but being able to essentially block with 3 cards and then still send back 8 is a really big deal, even when you don't factor in the effects. So
right.
This card is good.
I think this card is pretty fantastic, you know, honestly, and probably is just the kind of staple that the deck wants. The last one is one that we did not talk about yet because it came out while we were recording a couple weeks ago, so I just saved it. This one is Channel Mount Eisen. So we have another blue block 3, 0 cost, ice action aura. This one does have go again. At the start of each hero's turn, they lose life equal to the number of frostbites in their equipment zones. And then the channel effect, so you have to put a flow counter and then an ice card.
It's got really good art. Good job, Mark Poole.
Yeah, Mark Poole crushed it. Yeah. And
I had to do a double take because it actually reminds me a lot of like early John Avon stuff.
Kind of. A little less. This is more cinematic than Avon is. Avon is more of just like kind of that perfect landscape, where this looks like, you know, it looks like a movie. And but I totally understand where you're coming from, though. They both have that smooth, like kind of, they take your sight line and they direct it with the way that the movement of the art is. And Avon was also a master at that. Is a master at that. I think John Avon's still alive. So, so the floor of this card is a blue block 3. The ceiling is a ice card that will give a frostbite and drain them for at least one time.
No, that's not the ceiling.
No, not the ceiling. Sorry, that's the mid level.
Yeah,
that's the ceiling is blast them for 4 damage. Okay, I like 0 for 4s.
Well, if you've set up the 4 frostbites, like essentially also just time walking them.
Well, that too. Time walking is fun.
Yeah,
but I think that I've already seen it kind of happening with people playing the Jarl decks, you know, playing Jarl decks on Talishar in the open play room. And the deck seems like it's viable already. And that's without knowing what the weapon does. And the only thing we know about it is that there is a weapon, a Jarl weapon in the set, or in the deck. And it's Jason Lai's favorite weapon in Flesh and Blood. And this is a dude who loves Aurora and Briar. So Rosetta Thorn was already a thing that Jason really loved. Huh. That's scary.
Yeah, potentially.
My hot take is I think that the weapon is an earth activation.
Yeah, I see that as a possibility because of the ice earth, and we've seen more emphasis on the ice side.
Right.
I will say part of me also is wondering whether or not it's going to be I suspect it's going to be like a two-handed weapon from the art of Mangle, right? Like the big I don't know if that's an axe or a hammer, right?
It looks like it looks almost like a scythe that's also an axe.
Yeah, like I could go either way. But the reason that I suspect that is because I don't think that we're going to get another one-handed weapon.
No.
And I think that's probably okay because, like, I'm already really excited to play Stalagmite again, you know?
No, I get it. If this is an axe, like if this is templated as an axe, there better be a fucking axe pummel in this deck. Just finally give it to us. I've been wanting axe pummel for years now. Just give me a fucking axe pummel. Any final thoughts on Jarl Vitrades?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see when his thing is close to releasing, if we get any updates to card legality.
Well, I think Oakenold is on the watch list for sure. I also feel like we already saw Crown of Seeds go, right?
Yeah, we already saw Crown of Seeds, but the one that like that just jumps out to me, it's either his Jarl weapon is so cool that you don't want to do it, but like as somebody, like I know there's a lot of people who don't want to hear this. As somebody who loves playing Guardian, the thing that I'm just dying to do is swing my Winter's Wail again. And
which
it is
rotated out with Oldham.
Was that his assigned weapon?
That's his assigned weapon.
Oh,
Night.
What it is.
Yeah. Or else there's no fucking way they could release this goddamn thing.
Yeah, okay.
No.
All right, so it's just Titan's Fist then?
Yeah, you can Titan's Tickle. Or Anathos or whatever this dumb fucking.
Well, I was just thinking for one-handed stuff to go with the Stalagmite.
It's Titan's Fist.
Yeah, I forgot Oldham's weapon is technically...
Is Terra's weapon a one-hander? I don't remember. But either way. But yes, Titan's Fist. And that's really about it. Sledge of Anvilheim is two-handed, but you can play that.
Yeah, it just always throws me because... Oldham and I know why this is the case, but it always throws me because Oldham and Lexi's majestic weapons are assigned to them, but Briar's token weapon was assigned to her.
Because Duskblade was never legal.
Right, was never legal and is still banned.
Correct.
Okay. That's
forever
what it
is banned.
I don't think it'll be forever.
From the dev talk and then like the 5th anniversary stream, it's not coming back. It lives in living legend, and that's it. Because can you imagine if they had to design around Duskblade? Yeah. No, absolutely not. Moving on, we're going to do a quick comics corner. Poxanus had a couple of comic book questions, I thought we could just answer them. Since Uncanny continues to be a powerhouse of a book, what are your thoughts on the other new X books now that we're a few issues in? Have you been keeping up at all?
No.
Okay. So the new books, I would say that Uncanny is, I think, head and shoulders the best of them. X-Men is a little disjointed, but is still fine. I think Storm is incredibly good, and it hits really, really well. It's only one issue in, but it's already got that specific feel to it. X-Force is a little monster of the week-ish, which is whatever, but I'm not a huge fan. Like, it doesn't really have a lot going on that's ongoing that's super compelling. X-Factor, it definitely doesn't have anything that's compelling. I'm a big fan of what they're doing with Dazzler. I think that it's a very cool appeal to people in a, the pop star mutant thing. They're really leaning into it. And it's doing really well. Sentinels was slightly interesting in the first book I read because it's going to have a lot of connective tissue to the stuff that's going on in Greymalkin. So yeah, I think that right now they're doing a good job. Oh, and NYX is almost perfect. And I think that they're doing a very good job. I don't think X Factor lasts long. I don't think X Force lasts long. I think Sentinels is already a limited series. Storm is a limited series. I think Dazzler is a limited series. Psylocke's not out yet. And I own Mystique, but I haven't been able to read it. Wolverine is fine. It's always going to be fine. That's just Wolverine. So yeah, I think they're doing a good job for the most part. It's going to whittle itself down to probably being Uncanny and X-Men and a couple of the solos before they reboot X-Force again or whatever. But so far, again, I'm here for the ride. The first real crossover is happening in next month. So I think that'll bring about some of the more interesting things. I know you don't have a lot to add. The second question was also, what's your favorite Batman Black Label book? I don't even know what the fuck that is. What's a Batman Black Label book? What's a Batman?
I don't know.
All right, we're moving on then. We're at a tight hour and a half right now, so these listener questions are going to easily take us over 2 hours. So let's just jump in. What do you say?
Yeah, sure.
All right. First question is from Blaze Star. Will Charmer ever recover?
No. I don't think so.
Just ever?
Ever.
You're just cooked.
Cooked.
Absolutely
As
cooked.
the kids like to say.
Yep, you're just cooked. Moving on from James H. What do you think about the Armory Deck Origins debut of Jarl Vitradi? Well, okay. From a product perspective, do you like the inclusion of 1 legendary equipment and 23 Majestics given the higher MSRP? Is this a good path moving forward for introducing new heroes? Quick aside on this one, I think it's funny giving those rarities to cards that are only available in 1 set. Who fucking cares? Like, the rarity is you buy it in this box set. That's the rarity.
Well, unless they reprint.
I agree. Yeah, I understand that part. But
Also,
so what do you think?
Also, Commoner is a format.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you think?
I don't know. I just told you the 2 things that I think.
Is it it's a good path moving forward for introducing new heroes?
I have no idea. I'm withholding all judgment on whether this is good or bad until we see how the rollout goes, because and maybe it's always like this, and this is the first time it's impacting me hitting one of the 2 classes that I enjoy playing, but it's already sounding like there is going to be a very difficult time getting a hold of these. So
I'll be able to get you one in Iowa, no problem, and ship it to you. So whatever.
Well, around here, it's sounding pretty grim.
You do live in Guardian like nation, though.
I do.
Yeah. Like here, there's a lot of Guardian players here, but it's nothing compared to your local, which is just Guardians. It's a bunch of people that don't wear shoes. That's what that tells me. It's a bunch of people walking around fucking barefoot.
Yeah, that tracks actually.
Yeah, good enough. Next one's from Poxanus. On the latest episode, Doa talked about the love of game systems, and something tells me that Logan and Charmer could, or have already, come up with an interesting TCG game system. So what is it? I can tell you right away, I have not.
Really? Not ever?
Nope, not once.
Wow.
I know, right? You would think that by now, I'd have come up with something. But instead, just empty-headed. What about you?
I mean, shit, I've come up with a bunch of them. Like, I remember in my AP stats class in high school, I did something about trying to create a brand new game out of a standard deck of cards that was assigning traits, and like I'm always monkeying with stuff, but
what's it like to have that kind of like space in your head to do that?
It's pretty lonely.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, all right. I mean, I just have never taken the time's the wrong word. I've never felt like I had anything that'd be meaningful to contribute when it comes to designing my own system. I'd always start thinking about something, and then I'd realize, oh, that's just X.
I mean, sure, but I don't know. For me, it's very easy to like, especially when I'm learning a new game. It's very easy for me to say like, okay, I see what they were trying to do, and then immediately I start thinking about like, what are other ways that I could play with the user experience, sort of thing, or like, how do I subvert's not really the right word, but like, how do you just toy with like the knowns? And especially to me, I think it's so easy to do in trading card games because the format for, thankfully we have games like Flesh and Blood now that gave us something actually new and unique. But for a long time, for like 20 years, every game was just a reskin of Magic, right? Everything was
lands and creatures.
Lands and creatures, but even if it wasn't lands, then it was like, well, you just put a card face down, like with spoils or whatever. Or some of them were lands, but anything could be colorless, but they're always the same thing, and it's always progressive, and it was always like one card per turn. And so it also lended itself to the same strategies. And, in the 90s and early aughts, there was a lot of different game systems that also had me thinking about different things, right? So, whether it was, Star Wars, I always stand by Lord of the Rings had my favorite resource system of all time. I thought the Twilight Pool was really interesting. There was, like talking about game systems, there was a time back then, right? Because I was fresh out of high school and I was enamored with what Lord of the Rings was doing, because Decipher hit that. So like I was trying to mess around with the idea of, what if instead of the costs being, tied to the cards on the Twilight Pool thing and you having this like good player, bad player, it's actually kind of reminiscent of the way some of the games play now with like Altered and Star Wars. But like I was trying to toy with like, what if every card game was the back and forth action economy, and everybody had like a set of core actions, and that was essentially like the tension that was created was what you were placing the importance on. So instead of it being like, here's my turn, here's your turn, or here's the start of both of our turns or whatever, and we ready stuff, it was literally like trying to toy with the idea of, you don't have lands, you were using like a resource pool like the Lord of the Rings did, but like my action was I put one in my pool. Now it's your action. You can put one in your pool. So you could like ramp up to play more expensive things, but if you keep ramping and they play a bunch of cheap stuff, then you start falling behind, right? Same thing with like drawing cards wasn't a turn thing. Like you could take an action to draw a card and then it was your opponent's action. I spent a lot of time like messing around with like what were equal game actions that you could do at any stage of the game. And then it became like, well, what if you have to weight something higher, right? So maybe it's not you put one in the pool, maybe it's you put two in the pool to account for different card costs and keep the game. Because the last thing that you want, so it's one of those things that starts fine in practice, but then when you start going through any sort of design thing, you have to think about user experience, right? And so you don't want this thing where both players, at the start of the game go back and forth like 5 times to get 5 in each person's pool, right? You don't want to be bogged down by that. So then it becomes like, what's your starting pool? How many do you get? Like, and so it's not like I get a one resource, but it's just, you say like, I take a resource action and that might give you whatever. And it might give you more depending on the cards that you play and so on and so forth. So yeah, there was a time in the early aughts where I was enamored with the Decipher TCG, but I was also very much like playing with the idea of not having a my turn, your turn thing. Cause back then, like every game was, structured that way because that's what we knew. And so I was like, okay, what if it's just actions? There are no turns. It's just actions. And it's so funny because we see a lot of that now with like Altered and Star Wars and so forth.
Yeah, very true.
I can't believe you've never done it, man.
Not once. Next one is Justin S. Does the design of Channel Lightning Valley and Cerebellum processors seem a tad disingenuous after the book ban? Individually, they're not as powerful as the tomes, but I've had many games where the opponents have out more than one during a power turn. Overall, just having one out is manageable, but as soon as they stack, they feel too powerful. I think those are corner cases, and in a lot of times, like they're still okay. I'm going to say this as somebody who has often said out loud on this show, arcane damage isn't real and can't hurt me. If you decide to go into a Runeblade matchup, especially against Aurora, with AB0, it's your own fucking fault. Because That's how you let Channel Lightning Valley get out of hand. I've seen it before where somebody just decided, you know what? Pure race AB0. We're just going to throw an AB0. And then they attacked on turn 0. And the Aurora player looked and went, okay. So play 2 Channel Lightning Valleys and Sigil of Suffering. Your attack, deal 1 arcane, draw 2. Uh-oh. And those types of hands are those types of stupid, like that type of stupid shit is manageable. You just can't be in a spot like that. Like, you have to be aware of it. Books were just books. You just played them and got your shit. It doesn't rely on anything else. Cerebellum Processor's whole thing is it costs an action point to draw a card. Now, High Octane says, I have this many action points.
And I draw a card.
And then you can draw a card, and it doesn't do anything negative. But at the same time, it's not so abusable that they are up there with the books, right? Like, the books were just, they always drew 2. No matter what, you're always getting this value. And the others are at least situational. And yeah, when they stack up, it's hard.
Meeps have never stopped books.
Meeps have never, you're correct. Meeps have never stopped books. Meeps like to read.
No, they like cerebellum processors. That's what they like.
They love cerebellum processors. But cerebellum processors and Channel Lightning Valley's block value is also actual 0.
Right. I'm just talking about the meeps where when they hit, you can steal an item.
Oh, yeah, you just take the item.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's quite good. I love me some meeping.
I did that to a dash once and then proceeded to make their day become kind of nightmarish because you can get those back with codex.
Mm-hmm. Do it again.
Play assassin anyway. Yeah, it was really annoying.
So yeah,
I don't think it's disingenuous just because one, they've already said flat out High Octane's on the watch list. So I think that is again part of the messaging. And I also do think that, you know, again, if you're talking about when you have like multiple Channel Lightning Valleys out, they also played multiple cards that did nothing by themselves. And I know that it sucks to be forced into those positions, but like sometimes the right play is to block, even if you're not a guardian.
Yeah.
Because the thing is a lot of Aurora decks don't have great ways to maintain them for like beyond the first turn.
Turn is usually what you get out of one.
It's like you get the turn you play it, and then, you know, they're going to pitch their weapon or whatever, and then likely it's not sticking around again. And so you just kind of have to like weather the storm, pun incredibly intended, for like a turn and a half, and then you're fine. And you've weathered their powerful turn. And again, if they're playing those, then that's less for you to block theoretically as well, because they played those and those didn't do anything by themselves. And I know that I am being incredibly reductive here. I know that there are still ways around it. I'm just saying that there's still a lot more effort involved in making those work than there was with the books. Like,
right.
Just.
Yep. 100% agree.
I do love Sigil of Suffering though. Like, that is still one of my favorite dick moves in Aurora.
I also just love killing people with the Sigil of Suffering.
Oh,
It feels so good. Sorry, Chris. Next one is One Hit Wookiee, which great name. With the Jarl deck being the first historical, for want of a better term, hero in Flesh and Blood, do you think an Origins deck might be how they bring in an adult Emperor without having to resurrect him in lore? Is there any other historical/deceased characters you'd want to get in an Origins deck? That's pretty good.
I don't think we're ever going to get an adult Emperor, personally.
We might not. And totally okay with that. But I could see this as a way to get an adult emperor. If they decided that they wanted to go that route. I don't think it would be the dual class. I think it would be draconic, either royal draconic wizard or royal draconic warrior. But because it'd be before he learned the other thing.
No, I think that we will, like, if we get an emperor, it'll just be a different emperor, because we don't have anything that he doesn't have his own specialization, right? It's all tied to
it's just royal and
the royal
draconic.
And like, yeah. So I think that we might get another emperor, but not like the emperor again.
Sure.
And the reason that I say that is because even with this introducing the historical stuff and whatever, like, let's be honest, when they rolled out the marketing for that, and then they had Arachne kill the emperor, and they did like that was one of the coolest things Flesh and Blood had done up until that point, and I don't think that they would ever want to mess with that. No. Personally.
Do you have a historical character that you'd want to see?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think just because I feel like he would make a great guardian because of his size, even if he is a bit wiry. I would love to see Abraham Lincoln as a historical character.
Well, skinny guys like that, they fight to the bone. I'm going to play this one level instead of being an asshole like Charmer did, and say I think I'd rather Minerva Themsis is definitely high on the list. I would want her as as sort of a warrior with kind of all the abilities, and potentially Lord Sutcliffe. I think Sutcliffe would be fun as fuck.
I think Sutcliffe is a good choice.
Mainly because, I mean, that's your pay to play hero, right? Like, that's the life tapping type of bullshit that you're gonna do for a hero. Yeah. That could even be your necromancer if you wanted it to be.
Yeah, I can see that.
Next one's from Geeks First. Hopefully this doesn't come across as a complaint, but more of a question. I'm trying to better understand why it seems so hard to grab the Dash.io deck locally. It appears that while I'm in a densely populated TCG landscape of stores in my geographic region, only a select few have any of the Dash.io decks available. I believe this to be a result of allocation based on armory attendance. At least that's what the greater hive mind has informed me. I do see a few select stores selling them on TCG Player, but the meat and potatoes of this question is if a casual player who wants to play this at home or with friends can't get the deck from a store because they're not adding to the armory numbers, I am the problem. I don't go to many armories. Will this impact the game's long-term growth in any sort of possible way, in your opinion, or is this model perfectly fine and I'm looking at it through jaded eyes? I can walk into any LGS around me right now and buy it off the shelf. What I'm saying about that is they don't all have great armory attendance. And my question would be, are they hoarding it, or stores around you hoarding it because they want to sell it at higher than MSRP and are basically creating false demand? Or is it they didn't limit them so people could just went and cleaned off the shelves? Like, what? I think the issue is something other than what you're thinking it is. Because, like I said, I have basically 6 LGSs that I can go to in my area and literally buy one as soon as they open tomorrow morning. No problem. I have one sitting right here. It's just right here. It's unopened. It's right here. Like, got it from LGS. Didn't do anything special. Don't know what to tell you. Like, it may be like a saturation thing in your area where everybody bought it or everybody wants to buy it. Whereas here, it's every store got their 12 or their 8 or their 6 or whatever, and it's available. Even the store I was at for that ProQuest just had them on the shelf. They had literally every armory deck, KO included, on their shelf, just purchasable. So I don't know. Darick, anything to contribute?
No, I don't I don't think so. I know that locally we have, like, not every place has them on the shelves right this second is the way that I would say it, but I know that, like, we've not historically had, like, the first one, because there was a lot of uncertainty. I think people were trying to scoop them up and whatever, but since then it's really died down. This Jarl one is like the newest one that has caused problems for us. I think we've weathered that pretty well.
Are you doing pre-orders for that? Do you know?
Well, when I was asking the last time, they were like waiting to find out what their allocation was even going to be.
Got it.
So they didn't want to do pre-orders until they even knew if they could do pre-orders, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It's understandable.
So,
okay. Last question is Sephiroth is back. He was the one that asked the question about what the fuck about that armory. This one is, what in the fuck did Charmer do to piss off the universe and travel gods? Short of the people on flights AA11, AA77, UA93, and UA175, holy shit. You have the worst travel luck I've ever heard of.
I know I've told this story before, but I need to look it up now.
While you look that up, his second question was favorite Final Fantasy VII character and why is it Sephiroth? Mine's not Sephiroth.
My favorite Final Fantasy VII character is also not Sephiroth.
Mine's Red 13.
He's my number 2.
I like the doggo.
Yeah.
Vincent Valentine is my number 2.
Of course he is, you Gambit motherfucker.
Yeah, I love Gambit. Fuck you.
I'm Tifa, Nanaki, Kate Shi. I don't even know if Sephiroth's in my top 5.
Sephiroth is not my top 5.
Which is actually saying a lot. I like him more than I like Cloud. Cloud annoyed me.
Well, Cloud is shit.
Yeah.
I like Barrett more than I like Sephiroth, though.
I love a good eco-terrorist, but I think that's also why I liked Tifa so much, because she's also the eco-terrorist. But I have a soft spot for the punchers. So like in Final Fantasy VIII, like Zell is my favorite character.
Yeah.
Yep. Because not only was he the puncher, but like you could actually do combos, which I thought was very like in fighting game style, and I loved that. So I'm a sucker for like when everyone else has these giant like swords and then somebody just walks up and clocks you. It just makes me giggle. So
it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Did you find your travel related thing?
Oh, well, yeah. So ADC Airlines Flight 086. That's when you can add to your list of flights.
Yeah, that's when you were supposed to be on that crash killing everybody aboard, right?
Yeah.
Glad about that, miss.
So really,
I'm not glad that
my
everybody else died.
Probably been cursed ever since that point in time.
So you were a Final Destination person.
Yeah. Oh, wait, nope. This one's not the right one. This one was 96. Sorry. I was trying to search for the one in 2000.
Oh, that airline is not good.
Yeah, no, not that flight. Sorry. Here we go. So this was the 2012 one. Yes. Dana Air Flight 0992.
Killed everybody on board.
Yeah.
I really need to have less friends that have a Final Destination story, because
killing all 153 people on board.
Yep.
And 6 on the ground.
Oh, got bonus points. But yeah, I don't really love the fact that you had that close call for a number of reasons. But one of them is, if you believe in the concept of borrowed time, you're definitely on borrowed time. And odds are we're going to be in the same place at some time. If that bill comes due, that's going to suck for me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, whatever. 2 hours. You made it about
somehow I feel like you're probably on borrowed time too, though.
I mean, yes, that's not the point, but actually that is the point. Fuck. Yeah, whatever. I've gotten so many people alive.
It's a little bit the point.
I've gotten so many people home alive, safe and sound. at this point, I think I've more than made up, unless I just put them on borrowed time too, in which case I am a cosmic vacuum. Let's thank some patrons, shall we? We're about 2 hours in, and I know that you are probably dying, so I would rather not contribute to your death. We'll thank our associate producers, Andy, Sindra, Jacob, and the Salty Sea Cat. Then we also have our associate producers on, our executive producer on up. Sorry, we have Blaze Storm, value member of the Patreon, Dom, Lance Goodthrust, Matt Two Tokes, Pox on Us, Vintox 18, almost to 3 years. Again, Trevor, you're too fucking slow. You did not get your name changed. Philip, Rich, and Sergeant Swanson. If Sergeant Swanson had a listener question, what the fuck was it? Did I delete this shit? Because I really should ask it. Oh yeah, we're gonna ask this listener question. I almost forgot this. Question for and some other stuff for 151. With this game being a fighting game, when you break it down with attacking and blocking and other stuff, do you think it'd be cool if they illustrated the fight with the cards used? I'd love to see an actual fight between a guardian and some other class, but I make them choreograph it with what was used in the game and how it was used and in the order it all happened. So basically, you play your thing, I play my thing, and then block with my thing. It illustrates the combat, and by real people choreographing a fight. But I think that would be sweet, even if they had to build the decks for it to work like that. It'd be cool to see the fight unfold on the playmat, then watch the fight come to life just like it did in the card game. Okay. I guess my question is, would you want to see that? And if so, who would be the heroes for that fight? It's both for me and you.
Well, I would love to see that. If you're not familiar, so I used to do some esports work for a studio called We Play Studios. They were originally based out of Kyiv in Ukraine. They also have some US-based studios now. They do stuff for esports and even traditional sports now. And one of the things that they ended up doing for some of their Dota tournaments was some use of like augmented reality on their broadcasts. So like they would have Dota characters and have special animations for them for doing different things, and it would make it appear like they were doing so like on a stage, right? I have always thought, ever since I saw those broadcasts and having worked with them, that it would be amazing to have card games give you that kind of Yu-Gi-Oh feel, right? Like you play the card, it does the thing. I would love to see that. And if it's not that studio, then some other studio to do it. I do think that even if it was like, certain pre-canned things, I think that it would still be fantastic. If it was even just for certain scenarios, like key plays. And with that in mind, I think Jarl would be a great example, right? Like every time Jarl plays Mangle, you do the fucking Mangle where the hole in the head happens, right? Like
with all the blood.
Yeah, you lock in. Something like that. So I think Jarl would be an interesting one. And I'm obviously biased, right? Or any Guardian where you have the big crush effect, right? Because I think that one of the things, if you're trying to highlight something like one big attack that does something, crippling in one way, shape, or form, crushing in another way, I think that's great. So
crippling and crushing, some might say.
Yeah. And then as far as like along the other end of the spectrum, though I hate to say it, illusionists would be really cool just because you could animate, whether it's dragons or angels. Like they're a fan favorite class. They've got cool stuff. Trying to bring some of those marvels to life would be absolutely stunning. So I think that those would make sense, though that class matchup doesn't seem very like fun to me personally. So I do think that if I had to go with something not illusionist into like a guardian, I think Rangers could be cool. Yeah, there's
quite a few of them. I think ninjas is
like
great because the combo lines, but
so I think ninjas could be cool. I think like ninja versus illusionist, like if you're, again, it kind of depends on how you're choreographing the classes. Ninja versus illusionist would be very cool because you could have the illusions popping up and the ninjas popping them down and then still connecting and doing the back and forth stuff. Like that would be a really cool one to showcase it.
Oh, all right. Well, we got the an extra listener question, a bonus question, one might will, or one, if you will. Yeah, let's get out of here. Normal stuff. If you need to contact the show, you can always send an email to fleshandpod@gmail.com. I got an email this week because I said, who sends emails anymore? And the email just said, me. I send emails. Oh,
Sure.
fair enough. Okay. Thank you for the email. Also, so we are still have a Twitter at FleshPod. If the Blue Sky migration continues at this rate, for the Flesh and Blood community specifically, and it has been a very high rate of conversion over to Blue Sky so far, I don't see our Twitter account lasting the year, because what's the point if everybody is on Blue Sky, which is far better platform, by the way. And if you're not over there, you should probably just go over there. Then you should. Then there's really no reason to keep a Twitter account going for the show. But that being said, I know I put this out on Blue Sky, but I want to also say it on the show. The migration and how smooth it's been and everything else wouldn't have been possible without two people just doing an insane amount of the heavy lifting on Blue Sky. Marceline Fangmeyer and Tyler Luce have been incredible in their efforts to make sure that everybody stays connected, letting people know who's all there, and keeping the community feeling as tight-knit and as, as, what's the best word for this? As close as it's ever been. Marcy's been out there throwing up, hashtags for things, because hashtags actually work on Blue Sky, oddly enough.
Weird.
And I know, right? It's weird when you actually apply the thing. And so she's been making sure to nest content using that so it's easy to find. Tyler went nuts and made a starter pack for Fab content creators. So when you join, you can just find that starter pack by looking for Tyler at Loose Leaf Tea on Blue Sky, and I think it's his pinned post is the starter pack. You click on it, hit follow all, and boom, you're done. You are now just linked into the Flesh and Blood circle on Blue Sky. It's one thing. And that's incredible that he put that together. And it's been great for keeping the entire community talking to each other. And there's just no noise. There's no ad talking about Haitians eating fucking dogs or whatever. Like you just get the things you want to see. Weird, right? So like I said, and if you want to find us on Blue Sky, it's easy. You just search Flesh and Pod, or you just go to Tyler Luce's starter pack and you click the button and click follow all. We're in it. Charmer's in it, I'm in it, and the podcast is in it. So you get it. You get us in one shot. I do encourage everybody to go over there. It is so much nicer. Our tags are in the show notes. So if you need to find us, Charmer is just charmer.com.
Oh yeah, so
charmer.com.
I was gonna say that's the cool thing about Blue Sky is like they don't have this checkmark verification nonsense. Like if you have your own domain, like that's your own verification. So yeah, I'm literally just charmer.com.
Yeah, and as soon as I get off my ass and decide to make a website with the domain I purchased, we'll just be fleshandpod.com on Blue Sky. So yeah, it's so much nicer. So please go over there. It's an easy way to find us. It's an easy way to converse with all of us. And it's an easy way to just kind of get entwined with the community a bit. But you can also join our Discord. That's another good way to do it. That link's in the show notes. Click the link. You don't actually need to be a member of anything to get into our Discord. You don't have to pay for the Patreon. You have to be a free member of the Patreon. You don't do shit. You just have to click and enter the Discord. You just have to have a Discord account. That's the easiest way to find me, to talk to me, and tons of other people that you also just happen to share at least one thing with, which is enjoying this show for whatever fucking reason. Charmer, where can they find you?
In the skies that are
on the
blue.
toilet.
No, not lately.
That's good.
blowing my nose, hacking stuff up.
Well, that's progress. But yeah, on the blue skies,
Yeah,
you're over there.
I'm over there
You're in the shit.
doing the thing.
Doing the thing. That's what's important. If you need to find me personally, I'm also on Blue Sky, just Logan Peterson, same as I am everywhere else. Very easy to find. My personal Twitter will stick around just because sports is probably not going to migrate over to Blue Sky anytime soon in a giant wave like this. It's too big to do that kind of mass move. Flesh and Blood is kind of the right size to do that sort of mass move. So I think that one will stay open on the Twitter side for a while. But like I said, I really have a hard time seeing the Flesh and Pod Twitter being useful past, the first of the year. Just personal opinion. All right, 2 hours and 5 minutes here to get out of here, buddy. You seem like you need to go lay down and get like 14 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I'll get 6. Well,
6.
No. It's going to be more like 5.
Yeah. That's probably what I'll get. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We've got just a few more before it's 156, which I said I was never going to do 156 in a row, but here we are.
There's still time to disappoint everyone.
There's still time to disappoint everybody. Maybe that's what I'll do. Who knows?
Tune in next week to find out.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.